Miss, what's the address of the emergency?
Hello, there's been a massive explosion outside the back of my house.
Yeah, there's been an explosion.
There's been an explosion.
Lots of local residents who were closer to the scene than me thought a bomb had gone off. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before. Where there had been a 3-story building moments earlier, there was nothing.
It was shocking, yeah, absolutely shocking. I mean, people speculated, I suppose, whether this was some sort of terrorist situation, and we just couldn't answer that. I think it was trying to understand, was there anything else going on?
Once the police learn that there's potential accelerant use, now we know it's not an accident, now we know it's an intentional act. I look at this as a very typical staged event. So the police are under tremendous pressure. When you have 5 victims, this is something that really is not going to go away.
What then happens is you have a criminal inquiry involving multiple homicides.
They want to see what's the payoff. Why would someone do this? What's the motive?
The owners, they stood to benefit and gain a lot of money from destroying the property. Investigators are going to go backwards and see where were the owners earlier that day.
This isn't just about claiming insurance money. This becomes a lot more sinister.
It seemed like they knew what they were doing and didn't care about the consequences.
Leicester is famously a very mixed community, lots of different races here. It's a very arty place to live. It feels like a city where everybody gets on. It's just a calm, quiet Midland city, just getting on with life. There is crime in Leicester. As somebody who's lived here for 30 years, I feel safe. I would walk through the city at night by myself. I think Leicester sometimes has a bad reputation for various reasons, but it's not a city where I feel unsafe.
Leicester's a very busy city, multicultural, so it's very lively, got good cultural activities, and a goodish football team. It has been better, but I've supported them all the time I've been here, and I will continue to do so. As cities go, I think it's very friendly.
The Hinckley Road area in Leicester is very mixed community-wise. It's got lots of terraced housing. It's got lots of big houses where sort of established families will live. You will find everybody in the West End area of Leicester and Hinckley Road. It's got a great community feel, lots of shops, lots of students, lots of artists. It's a really mixed area. I would say that people know, for example, the local postmaster, they know people who run their local shops. You're likely to meet somebody to say hello to. You're probably going to know your neighbours. There's a lot of community spirit around there.
Hinckley Road was one way out of the city, if you like, as well as one way in, and it's not too far from the city centre, so it's quite a good place to live. Thinking back, it seemed a very relaxed place to live.
One of the buildings had a shop on the ground floor and then a 2-story flat above. Living in the flat was the Ragubier family. There was Mum Mary, 46. She worked at the Richard III Visitor Centre in Leicester. And she'd been working there for 2 years, and she made a big positive impression on all of them. Dad, Jose Ragubier, who was 58, and he worked as a carer in Leicester. And his employer said at the time that all his clients loved him so much because he was so caring and so compassionate. His employer described him as amazing and one of the kindest people they'd ever met. The children were Shane, who was 18. He'd just left school and he was in a relationship with a young lady called Leah, and friends described them as made for each other and that they were so in love. Friends said that they lit up the room when they walked in. They were just so happy together. And Shane had actually texted one of his friends to say that he wanted to marry Leah. There was a younger brother, Sean, he was 17, and he was taking his exams at school. And Scotty was the youngest brother, he was 15. They were so well thought of, really popular, just a normal, good Leicester family living their lives. The family moved to the flat in February 2015, and the flat was above a shop called Zabka. And it was opened by Aram Kurd, who lived in Leicester, in late 2017. And it was a basic convenience store. Jose was working, doing his caring job, and he came home at lunchtime, and he had a chat with Shane about football and a match that was on later that day. Shane asked him if he could borrow a £5 from his dad, and his dad said yes and gave him a £5, and then his dad went back to work. It was a Sunday night, about 7 o'clock. I was at home, I was off work. I think I was just about to eat my tea, and I heard an enormous boom. It was a boom that you felt as well as heard. I knew immediately that it was an explosion. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before. And I ran upstairs to see if I could see anything. I looked out of the window, and a few hundred yards directly in front of me was an inferno. The flames were higher than the roofline. It was just fire. It was absolutely shocking. My first instinct was, what can I do to help? But I realised really quickly that I was too far away to be of help, that there would already be a crowd of people there trying to help because that's the sort of neighbourhood it is. And I could hear immediately that there were sirens already.
What's the address of emergency? Hello, there's been a massive explosion outside the back of my house.
Yeah, there's been an explosion.
There's been an explosion.
And the screaming sirens were all I could hear.
This would be deemed by the authorities to be a major incident, and there would be need to understand what caused that explosion to make sure that other people were safe. And of course it would become evident quite quickly that there may be people involved in the explosion and there may be deaths. So the police, the fire service, gas experts, fire experts would all be involved in this as a major incident.
My initial thought was gas explosion. If a random building explodes somewhere, most people I think are going to think gas explosion. There were other rumours going around at the time. Lots of local residents who were closer to the scene than me thought a bomb had gone off. Our photographer who I'd sent to the scene got a photograph of a man who had emerged from the rubble, alive, apparently not very badly injured, and people gathering round him, hugging him, telling him everything was okay. And that turned out to be Kurd. Shortly after 11 p.m, the Fire and Rescue Service said that 6 people were in hospital. And 6 people being in hospital had an element of good news about it, because of course if people are in hospital, you imagine perhaps their lives can be saved. They said also that was the last update they were going to give that night. So we concluded our reporting soon after and started again first thing in the morning.
With a building that explodes and collapses and has caused a fire, it's too hot for anyone to enter. They suspect there will be bodies. They don't know how many, but it's very difficult, even with special equipment, to get in right away to see what happened. And the building itself was unstable. We don't know how neighboring buildings might have been. So there's a lot of caution. At the same time, there's urgency. It's a very difficult position to be in.
Initially, investigators approach the scene with an open mind. They don't know if the explosion was an accident, such as a gas main break, or they don't know if it was intentional, if it was a bomb. They don't know what caused it.
It could have been a gas explosion, and that requires experts from the gas authorities to be involved. It could have been a terrorist explosion, or it could have been another explanation, for example, a petrol vapor explosion. None of this would have been known at the outset, so it would require multiple teams of experts carrying out a really detailed, careful sifting of all the evidence that's involved in this case.
When we reported on gas explosions previously, the cause is named pretty quickly. It's pretty obvious to investigators that it's a gas explosion. But in this case, no mention of gas was made.
I mean, people speculated, I suppose, whether this was some sort of terrorist situation, and we just couldn't answer that, and nor could the police at that time. I think it was trying to understand whether more was going on than, well, say, just an explosion. It was tragic, but was there anything else going on?
Leicestershire Police said that there was no evidence to suggest it was in any way linked to terror.
My suspicion is that there would be traces of petrol detectable either in the very early stages of it, possibly even at the scene using portable detecting equipment, or quite quickly in the lab. An explosion is a very rapid event. The blast travels faster than the speed of sound, over 700 miles an hour. A fire, whilst it can still be rapidly developing, it's a much slower developing process. So one of the things that would have been in the investigator's mind was that if this was a petrol vapor explosion, a large volume of petrol would have been used. Depending on the particular configuration of the building and the ventilation, you get a situation where you get such a build-up of petrol that when you try and ignite it, it doesn't burst into flames, it explodes.
Once the police learn that there's potential accelerant use, and that changes the whole dynamics. Because now we know it's not an accident, now we know it's an intentional act. It's arson.
Where there was once a shop and a family home, there is now just a smouldering gap in the terrace. It is hard to comprehend the explosion that reduced it to a pile of debris. Easier to understand how 5 people lost their lives here.
The police announced that 5 people had been found dead in the rubble following the explosion. It was absolutely shocking, heartbreaking. Late on Monday night, the first picture emerged of some of the family members who lived in the flat above the shop. Pictures showed Mary Ragabea, her son Shane, and her son Sean. They were considered missing in the aftermath of the blast. Also still considered missing was Leah Reek, Shane's girlfriend, who was with Shane at the flat on the night of the explosion. The Ragabea family were a key part of the local community. They had lots of friends there, people who knew them, who valued them, who knew them as a good local family. And they were beyond horrified that something so terrible could have happened to them.
It was shocking, absolutely shocking. I learnt that Scotty, the youngest at the time, was in hospital. We realised that young people were coming to a little grassy area opposite where the explosion took place and laying flowers there. And we realised that we needed to set up some sort of memorial there, and that was organised. And it was only gradually I found the father, who was at work at the time, and got to know from his point of view what the situation was. It was very important that I got in touch with the school so that we could see how they were dealing with the situation, because we knew that the school had a big role to play.
When you have 5 victims, this is something that really is not going to go away. The media is not going to let this die. The neighborhood's not going to let this die. So the police are under tremendous pressure.
They now have to look at the potential that somebody intentionally caused this. The motives could be anything from they want to kill somebody in the building, they want to claim insurance, there's some kind of punitive potential there. There's limited motives, but they really wouldn't be able to tell immediately what it is.
This scene investigation will take several days. There's a great deal of work. It's very detailed work. And while that is going on, the police would be carrying out their inquiries. Initially, these would be very general inquiries. Who owns the building? And they would be looking into the background of people who lived there, the people who owned it.
The person who ran the shop was called Aram Kurd. He was the shopkeeper, he'd taken out the lease on the shop, and he ran the shop day to day. He set up the convenience store. Kurd was friends with someone called Hawker Hassan. He was also friends with a man called Arkan Ali. And Kurd had a girlfriend called Victoria, who was working at the shop. He'd employed her at the shop.
Gradually, a picture of the history of this building and its occupants and recent events would become clearer and would basically be the frame for the investigation. They would be talking to the owners about who might be in the shop, where they were when these events happened, whether they had any potential explanation for why they happened. And of course, it would gradually unfold from talking to the 3 men who were alive that Victoria was probably in the shop when the explosion took place.
We have to step back and think, okay, who's going to benefit? We're going to concentrate on the shop itself. What's the possible benefit? Or is there somebody else that has specifically targeted this person to injure them?
They want to see what's the payoff. Why would someone do this? What's the motive? And they're going to be looking at the potential that somebody insured the building or insured the shop. If Kurt's shop had burned to the ground and killing his girlfriend, he would want justice. He's angry, he's horrified, he's grief-stricken, he's just lost everything, his livelihood and his girlfriend. And so they will expect certain reactions from him.
I can say, yeah. Yeah, just go through and then how it all come about. I don't want to talk about it. Please make your way to Premier. No, okay. No, okay.
An explosion of this type, which then becomes a criminal investigation that involves multiple deaths, would become a national investigation. And that adds a layer of difficulty and complexity to the investigation, because there is constant media desire for information, which is understandable and necessary, but it can be a distraction to the main thrust of the investigation, which is finding the perpetrators and charging them with the offence.
We knew that at the time of the explosion, the dad was at work, caring for one of his patients, and Mary and the 3 boys and Leah were all at the family home. And although it was a miracle that Scotty had survived and that his dad had not lost his entire family, he, a young teenager, was now in a world where his mum had died and his 2 big brothers had died, and his big brother's girlfriend had died. And how anyone, let alone a child, can begin to process that is unimaginable.
They offered the sort of arrest centre, and people were given help if they needed it. The school were very involved. The next thing I remember is the day of the funeral. I felt the biggest shock was the school. The effect was demonstrated by how they lined the route to the cemetery or by the school. They stood outside the school and saw the hearses go by. It was so moving. I remember that very clearly.
Being part of the community myself, it's fair to say that hundreds, thousands of people were shocked and appalled, and even if they didn't know the family, heartbroken by what had happened. It's unimaginable that so many members of one family can be lost like that and in such terrible circumstances. And I know that everybody's hearts went out to the surviving members of the family. It's beyond imagination what they were going through.
It may well be that the police were suspicious about it from quite an early stage. There are 2 reasons for this. One is, one of the men who owned the shop was in his car nearby when the explosion took place, but claimed not to have heard the explosion. Another man who was a part owner of the shop was also seen on CCTV running away from the rear of the shop shortly after the explosion took place. What then happens is you have 2 parallel investigations then begin to merge as this begins to look like a criminal inquiry involving multiple homicides.
UK police are investigating a powerful explosion which destroyed a shop and a home late on Sunday evening.
5 people died when a shop and the flat above were destroyed.
Investigators start looking for motive. Motive is crucial in a case like this. Shortly before the explosion, the owners had taken out a large insurance policy. So they stood to benefit and gain a lot of money from destroying the property. That leaves a big question mark and a red flag. And it makes police start to think, maybe there's a motive here, and maybe that motive is the insurance money.
Now we're going to expand our canvas again and say, do you know anybody who's had any problems with them? Do you know anybody that they've cheated? Do you know anybody that's made any threats against them? But at the same token, we're talking to the shop owners and say, listen, tell me about your business. How's your business going? Do you have any problems with your business? Do you have any insurance? That's going to be a big one. What's important is if you find out that there has been recent changes to the insurance, that they've increased the insurance or they've gotten multiple policies, that's another red flag. They found that there was a recent insurance policy for £300,000 for the shop, and now a fire that happened almost at the same time. We always say coincidences happen, you should never believe them. When you hear a coincidence, the next thing you hear is probably a lie.
The police also found that Kurd had purchased a large amount of petrol 3 weeks before. As investigators find the policy and they find that an accelerant has been purchased in large quantities, they now can really do a thorough search with the idea that this is about an insurance claim, but it also involves murder. So they have to be very careful about how they process the scene.
The investigators are going to look for extra corroborating evidence. They're going to go backwards and see where were the owners earlier that day, check their credit cards, their cell phones, find out where they were earlier and would they have been able to set this fire?
At about 2:30, the 3 conspirators were seen in a coffee shop in Leicester city centre. And then later in the afternoon, the three were seen at a restaurant in the St Matthews area of the city. And the prosecutors later said that at the time, they were finalising their plans for the explosion.
From CCTV footage, we know that the three, Kurd, Hassan, and Ali, met in a cafe prior to the explosion. So it appears that police can now identify at least the core team of accomplices. Often in conspiracies, where there's money involved, people will start realizing when we split this up 4 ways, that's a lot less for me, who's expendable. The one that seemed most expendable was Victoria. And I would think the reason would be they thought she might talk if pressured. So this way, when we get rid of her, we get rid of the danger of her telling anybody, and we also get more money for ourselves.
At about 5:30, Kurd arrived back at the shop where Victoria was still working. At the same time, Hassan, one of the fellow conspirators, started driving around the area in the streets around the shop in a white Audi. And he did that for the next hour and the minutes leading up to the explosion. At 6:56, the third conspirator, Ali, was seen at the rear of the shop. He walked towards the shop and he disappeared from view. He was then seen leaving the rear of the shop. Ali was seen on CCTV footage running away from the shop and running after the slow-moving white Audi, which was in a side street. He got into the Audi and it approached the end of the residential street that it was in. To the left was the absolute devastation that he and his co-conspirators had just caused. And they turned right, drove away from the scene, and went to Coventry where they lived. Kurd had managed to get out of an alleyway and into a side street, and he'd made his way onto Hinckley Road, where he was immediately surrounded by people who wanted to help him. They thought he was a victim. Somebody hugged him and somebody said to him, "You're safe now, you're okay." They didn't know, of course, that he was involved.
As police realize they have a conspiracy, they know that there's going to be a leader. Somebody who had the vision, somebody who had the plan, somebody who directs everything. And the likely person is the shopkeeper, because he's the direct recipient of the insurance money. He certainly involved his girlfriend in some manner, and he certainly involved Ali. Hassan looks as if he's involved in some way. But what they'll be doing is really pressuring the two accomplices who will benefit, but accomplices are typically the ones who break. So they're going to want to get accomplices to turn on Kurd.
The next big update we got was on the Wednesday afternoon, when police said that 3 men had been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter. We still didn't know the cause of the explosion at that stage. The police said the men were all in their 30s, and they said they weren't going to issue any more information at that time.
One of the problems with doing any type of arson is you're going to determine, well, what was the intent? Was the intent just to cause a little bit of damage and then claim the insurance? Or was there another element? I mean, was there actual malice intent to, but we're going to get rid of this witness that we know happens to be there at that particular time? That's one of the things that the police are going to have to sort out. Because if you determine that this was an intentional act, okay, that it wasn't just to destroy the shop, but they had an ulterior motive also to eliminate a potential witness, and again, somebody they don't have to share money with, that's a whole different picture.
What police would be thinking when they realized that Kurd might have actually set up his girlfriend to die shows that he's pretty cold-hearted and maybe is a psychopath, and they have to be very careful about how they question him, because he will have no remorse about what he did. This isn't just about claiming insurance money. This becomes a lot more sinister, and he will have created a narrative to protect himself at anybody else's cost. He'll turn on anybody else to keep his narrative going.
Another thing the police have to determine as to whether or not this was an intentional act concerning the people who lived above. Was the fire started when they know nobody was upstairs? Or was it started when they knowingly knew someone was upstairs? Second thing is how much accelerant was used. Was it just enough to start a fire, okay, and in order to destroy the shop? Or was it specifically designed to burn the entire place down? That's something that the police are going to have to determine.
There's a big question mark about whether the perpetrators knew or should have known that there was family living above, and knew or should have known there were people in the building at the time they set the explosion. And that's important because it would have been manslaughter if they didn't know, if they were not aware that there were people in the building, and they didn't intend or didn't believe that there were people going to be hurt. And that would change if the perpetrators knew or should have known that there were people in the building at the time they set the fire. The difference between manslaughter and murder is intent. Murder requires intent. Manslaughter does not require intent.
Eventually the charge was changed from murder. I look at this as a very typical staged event, wherein there's an accidental fire in order to get insurance. What's important is we go back and we say, hey, there's the increase of the insurance, right? There's all the steps they took to get all the materials. It's very clear. This is the first time that they've actually done an arson, but it's not our first arson. We know what we're looking for. We know what's there.
The three men are accused, and they come to court and they say they're not guilty, they were not involved in anything nefarious. It's likely that when Kurd chose his accomplices, he had ensured that they were going to be loyal, that they were going to keep their mouths shut. I think in part it was fear, but in part it was a sense of loyalty and connection, because they all came from the same country together, they were in the same community, and they kind of have nothing to lose by sticking by their story. As the trial is approaching, the media is covering this because 5 people died and there were multiple injuries and other buildings were put at risk. So this is a significant community event, and people are attuned to wanting the perpetrators to be found guilty and be held accountable.
People were angry, and they wanted to know who had done this and why they'd done it, and how whatever it was that had happened had led to so many deaths. I've been reporting on stories in Leicester for 25 years, and I've never encountered an incident that was as horrific as this, and that caused so much fury and so much disbelief. So it transpired that the shop that Kurd had opened wasn't doing very well, and he and his 2 conspirators decided to do what's commonly known as an insurance job on the shop. They decided that they would blow it up, claim the insurance money. Victoria also knew of the plan. She was involved in taking out the insurance policy for the shop, so she knew what was going on. But the 3 men thought that she knew too much. So on the night of the explosion, Kurd left Victoria in the shop as he went to the storeroom to get the beer, knowing the explosion was about to happen, knowing that he was near the door, he could escape. He left her to die as well.
He comes across as highly self-centered, psychopathic, without remorse, sacrificing his girlfriend after getting her help. So he's a particularly bad character for people.
The issue for me was being present in the court so I could hear firsthand, what they said went on. I think what I felt then and now is that what a waste of young lives, purely for money. It was a young family. They were lovely people, and what a waste.
I think part of what the jury has to grapple with is these guys are lighting a building on fire. They have no idea how far-reaching this would be, how many fatalities and injuries it could potentially have, but they do it anyway. And I think that's part of it, is not just that they knowingly killed people who were in the apartments, but they knowingly put many people at risk. They couldn't have controlled what happened, and they did it anyway. So the sense of calculation just for financial gain and nothing more is astonishing to people. This is so petty. People died and were injured for something as small as a financial incentive. The fact that the defendant showed no emotion, would come across as seeming indifferent and without any kind of remorse, without any sense of what they had done. The jury will, as they're coming to grips with the evidence and thinking these guys are guilty, are seeing people who just don't care. And that will also be alienating.
After hearing all the evidence, the jury ultimately decided that the three conspirators were guilty of murder. That meant the jury was sure that those three men knew the flat was occupied when they caused the explosion to happen. It's hard to put into words, isn't it, honestly? That to me is beyond evil.
I think people saw it as justice, that they didn't get away completely with that, although I think any thoughts about justice was about how terrible it was this family had lost their lives. Nearly a whole family. So it was important that they'd got their dues. But I think the greater thought was about how tragic this was. It was done as an act of insurance, just to get money. But how you link those two at the time was quite difficult, I think, really. How did Jose and Scotty, how did they deal with that? Their mother and their two brothers and Leah were killed. I mean, it's just dreadful. It seemed like they knew what they were doing and didn't care about the consequences, but felt it there as well. But it's afterwards when you're not picking up the pieces, but trying to adjust and see what's going on. That's when you felt it.
This was such a cold and calculated plan to stage an explosion just to benefit from the insurance. The insurance payout was £300,000. So each of these co-conspirators stood to gain £100,000 apiece. It's tragic to think that these three people were so focused on getting money that they put the value of human life below the money that they stood to gain. No amount of jail time is going to bring back mothers, fathers, friends, people who were lost or harmed during this explosion. There's no amount of years, there's no amount of prison that can bring back a human life.
It just doesn't seem to make any sense that somebody thought that gain was worth killing just one person, let alone 5, and putting the entire area at risk. It doesn't seem worth it. It's really hard to fathom a mind that could calculate like this and think walking away with even 100,000 pounds for their share made this worth it.
Going back there, you could see the effect of what was a huge explosion, because the Gap, City Council or some company, put fencing around the area, not to hide it, but to make it safe. People talking about, what are we going to do? Are we going to fill that gap? Or the idea of us going around, well, we need to make it into a little park. But what we did was make a little park memorial opposite. I hope that people still remember that in some way.
For most people, it's impossible to imagine something like this affecting their family. And I cannot begin to imagine how Jose and Scotty and Leah's family even began to rebuild their lives, if they've managed to rebuild their lives after. And of course, the impact on those families will be there forever.
There's the tragedy, and there's the crime, the explosion. And in terms of the tragedy, you can't foretold how you could deal with that. You just make sure that you've got people supporting and around, and that goes on for some time. It doesn't stop.
It's going to take time for the community to heal from this tragedy and to heal from this loss. And there's also a physical scar, a physical reminder that will always be there. Every time anyone walks by the place where this building was, they're going to be reminded of what happened there.